Good afternoon. I'm Chris Spandico. I lead product for the AWS Marketplace buyer experience team. And before we dive into the session, I wanted to set a little context about what we're talking about today. So a recent Forrester economic impact study found that a typical enterprise customer would see a significant return on investment by moving to AWS Marketplace. And in that study, they found that the improvements of improving time to value or accelerating time to value, which is essentially getting the software that you buy faster and in the hands of your stakeholders or your builders, was significantly improved. This was through things like improving the time to onboard a new vendor into your company, the deployment speed, and other interesting areas like improving the speed of contracting and procurement. The other part of the study is what we're going to focus on today, and that was that the financial operations and the tools that Marketplace and AWS in general provide can actually help save you time and money in the financial operations side of procurement. And so today, myself and my colleague Keith Browning will walk through the financial operations or FinOps framework that AWS Marketplace and AWS cost tools can really help you gain visibility into your software spend. And not just that, but once you know what your software spend is, what you can actually do with it from there. We're also joined by Thomas Costello from GoDaddy, and he will go through how GoDaddy is using AWS Marketplace and using some of the tools that we highlight today. So you might be asking, well, why specifically software? Why is that important? And what we're seeing and what Gartner has seen is growth of at least 12.6% software spend this year. That's outpacing the IT budget increase, that's roughly 7.5%. So we see software spend growing, and it's one of the fastest growing parts of the IT budget. And for a lot of organizations, that's actually becoming one of the most significant costs of the company in general. So it's important to understand what you're spending on, but more importantly, why and what business value that's driving. So today, we'll walk through how we as AWS think about financial operations or FinOps. We'll talk about some of the ways that Marketplace features can help you realize that value of accelerating and optimizing. And then we'll walk through the FinOps framework, the AWS FinOps framework of see, save, plan, and run. And we'll talk through specific features that help with each stage of that framework. At that point, then Thomas will come up and explain how GoDaddy is using some of the tools that we see and how they're using Marketplace to help them with procurement. So what is FinOps, other than another abbreviation you have to learn? Well, financial operations at the essence is about driving business value. It's about understanding what your spend is and why you're spending on that, what connects to the actual business value. Because you might say, oh, we'll just cut costs, we don't need the software. But if that software is actually an enabler for your business, then there's a positive ROI. And it's important to understand that and be able to show that for these costs, we actually see this type of return. And so FinOps is really about understanding that and then optimizing for your business value. So at AWS, we've thought through what that framework would look like for finance operations process. And we have 4 stages, essentially. The first is pretty obvious. You need to understand what you're spending on and have accountability of who's actually doing that spend. So measurement and accountability. From there, you can start looking at where you can save. There might be multiple subscriptions to the same product. There might be licenses that go underutilized, things that would be easy to consolidate and start saving. But also that data helps you plan for the future. So planning and forecasting becomes a next very important piece of, for renewals, how many more licenses do I need? Working with your stakeholders to understand what they expect their business to do next year so that you're prepared and not hit with overage costs. But also, you can start planning with not buying necessarily all the licenses you need for peak, but more for a baseline and moving to pay-as-you-go where it may be appropriate, saving you money in the long run. And the fourth stage is run, which is really taking the processes and policies and putting them and operationalizing them or productizing them, as a product manager might actually say. So it's about the people that you need, the process and policies that you need, and the tools that you need. And how do those work and have your stakeholders buy into that process as well. So demand management is actually an interesting strategy that overlays on this framework, the FinOps framework, fairly well. And demand management is about looking at total cost of ownership and controlling demand. And so building out the right policies and procedures to be able to identify what your software portfolio looks like and improving the visibility of that spend and the accountability of that spend. Managing requirements and specifications of the software you're buying is also important. And this is one of the key areas of how should I say this? It's a team sport. This isn't someone in isolation making this decision. You need to understand what your stakeholders' needs are. In AWS terms, we work backward from the customer. And in a FinOps process, your stakeholders, your builders, are essentially your customer. So how do you get the software that they need to be successful, for your business to be successful, understanding what those needs are so that you're buying the right thing at the right level. So maybe you don't need every feature and the premium version of a software application. You might just need the base version. You might have over-provisioned licenses, and we can move to a pay-as-you-go model for some of those. So understanding what those needs are can better help you plan for the future. And that drives the change in spend patterns. So moving to flexible licensing, et cetera. And then instead of growing at 12% every year, you may actually be looking at reducing your costs year over year, or at least balancing that so that the business value you're driving is optimized with the increased investment that you're making. So AWS Marketplace is very aware that this is a balancing act. And we've built features across the spectrum of speed and governance and controls to help customers enable what is right for them to be able to find that right balance for their organization. This includes things that increase your speed and agility. Things like a large marketplace catalog full of over 15,000 software items. Also, easy way to subscribe and easy way to deploy with our integrations with other AWS services. To balance that, we have risk and assessment enablement. So we scan every Amazon machine image that we sell looking for vulnerabilities so we know that they're safe. We have Vendor Insights dashboard that has continuous monitoring of SaaS applications, things that help you understand what the risks are and be able to balance those. We've also invested in standardization. So standardizing licensing terms, we have over half of our sellers using the same standard end user license agreement for their public offerings now, and standardizing workflows. So private offers, which are negotiated contracts, how those connect directly to purchase orders that you might be using for budgeting. We also have invested in cost optimization tools, and we'll deep dive into these in the next few slides, but it's really about understanding what you're consuming and being able to then track back to who. And this also comes with the set of controls which you would expect from AWS. So you can control who can buy, what they can buy, and then be able to see who's doing this buying after the fact. So that's the setup. Now let's walk through this FinOps framework step by step and look at what features AWS Marketplace offers in each stage. So first is C. So understanding the accountability and the measurement of costs. We've seen customers use 3 strategies, or maybe combining these, in all honesty. So the first is account hierarchy. So you have a business unit, you have your organization structured in a certain way. We've seen customers reflect that in their AWS organization structure. So particular business units have a specific number of AWS accounts, and there's a direct mapping back. So when you get your invoice, you understand this spend goes to this business unit. For those applications that cut across multiple accounts or potentially multiple business units, there's cost tagging. And so you can tag your AWS resources with common tags to understand across accounts what that cost actually looks like. This is particularly useful for Amazon machine image software procured through Marketplace and other software that's deployed within your AWS accounts. And the third is purchase orders. So as many of you are probably familiar, purchase orders are a common practice amongst our enterprise customers. They use that to pre-allocate budget to make sure that the commitments they're entering into actually have the funds set aside to pay for those. And so let's deep dive into purchase orders. I'm happy to tell you, if you haven't found out already, last week we launched a significant improvement to the purchase order management in AWS Marketplace. So now you can attach a purchase order when you subscribe to any product type. And we now support pay-as-you-go, pay-as-you-go pricing as well as contract pricing. What that means is when you attach a purchase order to a pay-as-you-go product or a SaaS product that has consumption elements, that instead of getting a consolidated invoice at the end of the month with all your expenses in one invoice, we will now split out into separate invoices based on the spend against the purchase order. So one purchase order for one invoice and the payments or the usage against that purchase order. That makes accounting much easier. They don't have to work through each line item and figure out what purchase order it goes against. It's just, you can automate that process now and understand where that expense is going, who to charge back to. If you don't add the purchase order at the time of subscription, you can now also go back into the AWS Marketplace console and add a purchase order. So the next invoice generated for that expense will have that new purchase order reflected. If you need to change a purchase order, you can do that too. You can also assign, if you have a flexible payment schedule, so multiple payments on an individual contract, you can assign different purchase orders to those different payments. So let's say you have a 3-year contract, you can set a different purchase order for each year of that contract. And the payments for each would go against that separate budget. All of these purchase orders are available to view in the AWS Billing Console and the Purchase Order Portal, as well as your AWS Marketplace purchase orders are also visible in your Managed Subscriptions section of the AWS Marketplace console. So multiple places to find it and edit if need be. But cost isn't just the only thing we care about. We also care about looking at spend trends over time. And so there's 2 dashboards that are available. And Thomas is actually going to talk about the Kudos dashboard in just a minute. The Kudos dashboard uses the cost and usage report, or the CUR file as it's affectionately known, to help visualize. And we've had AWS experts develop different QuickSight dashboards that you can now deploy in your own environment and help you analyze all different areas of AWS services, including Marketplace. So you can see how much you're spending with individual vendors or individual products, seeing trends over time. In October, we launched the Procurement Insights dashboard directly in the Marketplace console. This is a QuickSight dashboard that highlights all of your subscriptions across your entire AWS organization. So every agreement or every subscription across every linked account is now in a table that has the start date and end date, if it's a private offer or not, as well as what account purchased it. So you can easily identify if you have duplicate subscriptions. You can easily manage your renewals. You know when private offers are going to expire, so you know when to engage in renewal discussions. It also has additional information on trends and being able to visualize that data across vendors, across time. It's available today. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Keith to walk through Save, Plan, and Run.
All right, thank you, Chris. Welcome again, everyone. I know it's been a jam-packed week for you, and I'm especially glad that you're here with us today. I'm Keith Browning from the Marketplace Buyer Experience team. And prior to coming to AWS a little over 2 years ago, I spent over 17 years in procurement, where cost optimization and savings weren't just goals, they were daily imperatives. So today I'd like to continue to share some AWS Marketplace features that will help you optimize costs, streamline planning, and drive business value. And the features that are showing you within AWS Marketplace today, they're not just theory. They are real solutions, practical solutions that are drawn from everyday experience. So let's dive in. So next, I'll discuss a feature within the Save stage of Marketplace that will help organizations save money. So imagine you or someone in your organization is looking for a new software solution. You don't want to commit to large upfront costs, but you want to save money when you find the right fit. This is why we built 6 different ways for you to buy in Marketplace. You can start with a free trial to kind of test the waters, and then you can move to a different type of way of buying for pay-as-you-go while you validate the solution. And then as your usage becomes more predictable, you can move to a monthly or annual commitments for deeper discounts. And if you need custom terms with suppliers, we have our private offers, which allows you to negotiate custom terms depending on committing to a length of time and getting a discount with our sellers in Marketplace. This is like having a flexible shopping experience that grows with your business. One of our customers was spending hours manually distributing and tracking licenses across their organization, and it was error-prone and time-consuming. And with our AWS entitlements management in Marketplace, they can now automate the entire process. Licenses flow automatically to the right teams. Usage is tracked automatically, and they have confidence that they're compliant. I like to think of this as a digital license librarian, ensuring everyone has exactly what they need when they need it. This saves costs as it reduces the potential for duplicative buying or license overuse. And this is integrated with our AWS license manager within Marketplace. Another feature related to Save is instance portability. Here's a common customer challenge. They commit to an annual software license for a specific EC2 instance type, but 6 months in, the workload needs change. And previously, they would be stuck with that license, or they'd have to buy new licenses. Now with our Amazon machine images annual plan amendments, customers can change instance types and keep their discounts. You can add capacity, so if you need to scale up to handle additional workloads, such as monthly or annual processes, or additional traffic to your websites, spikes, you can scale up and not have to buy additional licenses. And then if you need to scale down or reduce capacity, you can do that again without having to buy additional licenses. So it's kind of like having a flexible lease on your software. You can adapt your needs as they change without paying penalties. And this is available for all AMI products that you can purchase within Marketplace. So next I'll go to the planning and forecasting stage. So in the plan phase, picture a large enterprise where hundreds of developers could purchase software without controls. This leads to budget overruns, duplicate licenses, non-compliant softwares within the corporation. And with private marketplace, you can allow administrators to create a catalog of approved products and sellers. And with that catalog, you can add your company branding, your logos, and set permissions. It's kind of like having your own corporate app store, ensuring everyone plays by the same rules while you're still moving fast and innovating as an organization. Private Marketplace is built on top of AWS Marketplace, which makes it simple to buy, find, buy, and deploy software solutions that meet your business needs. When you're setting up a private marketplace, your administrator would create what we call an experience, which is where you get your list of approved products, you put on your company branding, logo, color scheme, whatever you wish, and then you create the audience. And that audience is your approved, your buyers within your organization. So say if you wanted to set up an audience for your DevOps, your builders, with just DevOps products, you can do that. You have the flexibility to say if you wanted to set up a catalog for your security resources within the organization, you could do that. And then if your business stakeholders, marketing, HR, if you wanted a separate catalog for those business applications, you could set that up too. So it allows you that flexibility of setting up various catalogs for your users within Marketplace. Another planned feature is AWS Cost Explorer. Customers have told us, we don't just need to know what we spent, we need to understand why. And Cost Explorer now provides deep visibility into Marketplace, your Marketplace spending patterns. You can track trends, spot unusual spikes, and forecast future costs for the next year. You can filter especially for Marketplace purchases to understand your software investments. It's kind of like having a financial advisor who can tell you exactly, where your money is going and where your money is going next. Budget, you can view data for the previous 13 months, and you can forecast how much you're likely to spend in the next 12 months. And you can get recommendations also for what reserve instances to purchase within your organization. As Chris mentioned earlier, we also have our cost and usage reports. So if a customer who is really data-driven and they want to analyze their software spending at a granular level, they can use the CUR, as we like to call it. It uses the same data set from Cost Explorer and is delivered daily to your S3 bucket. It's ready for analysis with tools like Athena and QuickSight, and while the report itself is free, you only pay for the standard S3 storage. It's kind of like having your own business intelligence team dedicated to software spending analysis. Now, for AWS budgets, consider a team that's consistently exceeded their software budget because they only discovered overspending after the fact. With AWS budgets integration, they now set proactive alerts, for marketplace spending, and when you use this or approach certain thresholds, automatic notifications go out. You can choose to be alerted by email or SMS notifications when actual or forecasted costs actually exceed, what your budgets are. And then even better, you can configure notifications or actions that trigger specific events. So say if you're going to deploy new licenses, if those licenses would put you over your budget, you can automatically have that stopped so that you don't exceed your budget thresholds. I like to think of this as kind of a financial guardrail system that prevents you from costly surprises. Next, I'll go into the cloud financial operations, or the run phase. So through our cloud financial operations framework, or CFO, we learned from customers that managing software spend isn't just about the cost, it's about the tools, and it's about cost and a cost-aware culture. So our CFO framework helps organizations mature through 4 key stages, from gaining executive buy-in to aligning your stakeholders regarding your third-party software costs, through implementing those guardrails, and finally achieving cost efficiency at scale. You can think of this as your financial roadmap to excellence in the cloud, ensuring that every dollar spent delivers value within your organization. And of course, at AWS, everything we do starts with the customer needs. So with Marketplace, you can help run your procurement process and gain efficiencies. Customers ask us to provide a better, faster way to find software, data, and services solutions within Marketplace, and it's been around for over 10 years. In the catalog, currently we have over 20,000 products, divided across 70 categories, and we have over 5,000 sellers. And one of the questions we often hear is, well, using Marketplace add extra costs or complexity? And the answer is no. There's 0 cost to use Marketplace. You only pay for the software that you buy. We don't mark it up, and the contracts are directly between you and the sellers that you are working with. Unlike traditional marketplaces, software marketplaces, there's no lock-in, and it's kind of like having a trusted advisor who connects you with solutions but doesn't charge for that introduction. One of the things that came out of re:Invent was that Ruba announced Buy with AWS, which gives you more opportunities or more ways to buy directly from sellers through other websites outside of AWS Marketplace. Oops. All right, I kind of gave it away. I wanted to have a little audience participation. And so just shout out the answer if you didn't see this. What is part of the process, or the longest part of the process when you're negotiating, when you're procuring software? It tends to take the longest time normally. Just shout out what you think the answer is.
Agreeing for legal terms.
Correct. Contract negotiations. I'm sorry I gave it away. But we created standard contracts for AWS Marketplace to really help drive business efficiencies in several key ways. It streamlines the procurement process through pre-negotiated contract terms. These terms were developed in collaboration with our buyers and sellers over a couple of years, and we've come out with a couple of different versions, but the latest version is used by over half the products within Marketplace. The templates were developed and they offer standard contract terms across different topics like usage, warranty, and indemnification. And it allows buyers to review terms once and then apply the costs to multiple products and sellers. So it really streamlines the procurement process. Normally, negotiating contracts can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, up to a year or more if it's a very big dollar, very complex deal. And we've seen contract negotiations with standard contracts get reduced to weeks and even days sometimes. So finally, AWS Cost Optimization Hub. It's a service offered for free within AWS, and it kind of brings it all together. So imagine a finance director of an organization, and you need better control over your company's growing software spend. With AWS Marketplace and Cost Optimization Hub, you can transform how your company buys and manages software. For ongoing management, you can use Cost Optimization Hub to track spending and receive personalized savings recommendations. To prevent surprises, you can set budgets with automated alerts. And the result is, your organization now saves money through smarter purchasing, maintaining control of your spend without slowing down innovation. and you can prove that the value of every dollar spent on software is helping to drive your business and meet your cloud financial management goals. Now I will turn it over to Thomas to talk about his experience with AWS Marketplace.
Thanks, Keith. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me all right? Am I too loud? My wife sometimes says my voice is too booming. I'll try and keep it down a little bit. So I really love what they've done with Marketplace over the last 5 years. And I could talk about this for hours. I'm very passionate about just cost and optimization and spend. And so my name is Thomas Costello. I'm with GoDaddy. Been on AWS Cloud for going on 6 years. Been at GoDaddy for 10 years. Part of that I was at Microsoft. But want to talk to you about how we, like boots on the ground, how we actually use it today. And we have a Q&A afterwards open for suggestions or questions. And then if you guys want to chat afterwards, can do that as well. So for those of you who don't know, GoDaddy, primarily a domain name company, but I really love our mission and our vision. So we want to empower everyday entrepreneurs to make this opportunity for getting your business up and running for everybody across the world. We're a worldwide company and growing, dramatically outside of the United States. And my favorite thing is GoDaddy's vision is radically shift the global economy towards life-fulfilling entrepreneurial activities or ventures, and really enabling those small, 1-2-person mom-and-pop type enterprises to get up and running. And they have a dream and a vision. They go register a domain, and they go and they can use GoDaddy to then empower them to get get up and running quick. So. One of the shameless plugs I'll give you, and it's a really great tool. Just Google it, GoDaddy Airo, A-I-R-O, all based off of AI. And we empower individuals to take their domain. We'll take that domain and run it through AI. We'll ask you what kind of business you're running. And literally within 7 to 10 minutes, you have a website up and running. My daughter just used it to put her band up, and within, 7 minutes, she had her domain hooked up to her website with AI-generated pictures, AI-generated content, not the old Latin, remember the old Latin phrases in your websites? This is now all custom-generated, and you can put all sorts of widgets in there. It's a beautiful tool. It's a great tool, so please go use it. GoDaddy Airo, A-I-R-O. All right, that's enough for the shameless plug. Let's talk about what I really love is AWS framework for FinOps. So really what I'm going to do is take their framework and show you how we use it at GoDaddy. The one thing I would say, if you're new to AWS or you're new to this process, 2 things you need to get out of this talk is CUR. Everybody remember CUR, cost and usage reports. You got to get that turned on, get it turned on immediately. It's pretty easy. Google it, AWS CUR, get it turned on. Second is Kudos, the Kudos dashboards. Fantastic work that is free, available once you get QuickSight up and running. You have these dashboards available to you, and that is all based off the CUR. So you got to have the CUR running, then you're going to get the cost and usage dashboards. Kudos is cost and usage dashboard operational service. I don't know what the S is, but it really is. And there's multiple Kudos dashboards. There's 2 for AWS Marketplace, but there's all sorts of other dashboards in there. So cost and usage in the cost and diligence dashboard is the C. You've got to be able to see it and measure it before you can make any improvements. So then once we can see the data and we see it in presentable format, you can use Cost Explorer, but we can talk about the difference between Cost Explorer and the cost and usage. But you really want to see over time, long periods of time, and then you can start doing your cost optimization. Across the board, you can do cost optimization, but for the marketplace, where we're seeing the best results is around entitlements management. And so that one of the things that I just really hate is license rot. So we have licenses, we buy all these licenses, they're sitting up there, they're not being used. And making sure you're forecasting correctly and making sure you're using the licenses that you purchase, and if you're not, then we need to make improvements. We also can use this framework for our planning and forecasting. So this is all centralized for our procurement team. I'm on the engineering side. I've built, we have a philosophy at GoDaddy of this DevSec FinOps where It's, developers are responsible for FinOps just as much as the finance people, just as much as the procurement. And I work hand in hand with those organizations and those teams on a daily basis, in procurement especially, of setting this up and making sure it's all centrally managed. And so we have a centrally managed portal for procurement, and over the last 6 years, we have doubled our spend in Marketplace every year. So we are continually growing our spend. The other thing to note is if you do have your EDP, your discount with AWS in your contract, this all goes, not all of it, but a percentage of this goes towards your commitment. So that's really big for us of getting our EDP commit taken care of. And it really is beneficial. So if any questions on that, talk to your account manager, but it's really important. And then on the run side, the features that this team has delivered over the past couple of years, I give feedback. I've been giving feedback, brutally honest feedback, for the last 3 or 4 years, and they've made great strides in this private offer workflow approval, and they're changed to adding the PO, and then now, just a week ago, announced that you can now do after the fact adding. It's going to make a huge difference for us. And just a side note, that tagging that they talked about, that also flows through your CUR, and it's going to make a huge difference in your life. So trying to make it easy for you, and I've made mistakes along the way, and trying to give you the lay of the land of where not to make mistakes. So the Kudos dashboards. So again, this is one of many dashboards, all based off of the Kudos for the marketplace. But the big thing you're going to get out of this is you can manage, if you have multiple master payers or multiple accounts, and you have all that raw CUR data, there's all sorts of pivots and data you can do once you're in QuickSight. It's your BI tool. It's basically Power BI or Tableau, but in AWS. Works great, works beautifully, and then you can pivot all the data, and if you have those tags, you bring those tags in here as well, and then you can tag and track all your spend. So the Kudos dashboard, again, CUR, Kudos dashboards, 2 things you really need to be aware of. So as part of our internal approval process, we have our normal sort of procurement process, generate a PO, get legal, sign off on the contract, do the negotiation, all those things. And then at the end, we have this PO. And this really saves time, money, management costs. The invoicing team just absolutely loves this, so that you want to have that PO number that you can just tag right on the PO when you sign the contract to be able to use on the offer and have it flow through the system. So you, like was mentioned, you get the PO you get the invoice just for that PO, instead of having to go through a terrible process of trying to demystify the invoice. You've got it all right there. And that tag, again, really makes a difference. And then last, for the entitlement management, this is one where we have all this software flowing through our marketplace, and instead of having to go do entitlement management for X product, Y product, Z product, we can see it all in one dashboard. And as we start moving all of our software, we're 70% there into the marketplace. As we get all of our software in there, we basically have a procurement dashboard that shows all of our SaaS software and entitlements. This is just a straight screenshot from AWS. It's nothing special about it. It's just you can measure and monitor your entitlements, and you can then share those. If somebody's not using it across, they bought it but they're not using it, we can share those licenses across to other AWS accounts. And I think that is it for me, and I'll turn it back over to Keith.
Thank you, Tom. Okay. Is my mic on? All right, there we go. All right, so just some key, before I wrap it up and we open it up for Q&A, just some key takeaways. Hopefully you've seen how AWS Marketplace provides visibility, controls, and cost optimization for your third-party software costs. You can leverage the AWS FinOps framework to gain control over your cloud costs and connect software to business value. You can actually migrate existing software to AWS Marketplace to take advantage of flexible licensing and optimization capabilities. And you can integrate AWS Marketplace cost data into your budgeting, forecasting, and reporting processes. If you have more questions after today, always contact your AWS account team. They're always there to help you. So we will have a few resources, QR codes to some of the resources and information we shared with you today around AWS Marketplace and the FinOps framework from a cost optimization perspective. So we'll keep these up while we open it up to Q&A.
Shy group.
It's after lunch.
All right, well, we'll be available up here if you guys want to ask questions more directly instead of in front of the whole audience. Happy to discuss. We have some time left. And thank you for attending.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of reInvent.